Hey guys, it's Dani. Today we are talking all about maintaining our orchids in check. And by this I mean keeping them tiny. Now in this video I will refer to sympodial orchids such as Cattleyas, oncidiums, dendrobiums, and other orchids which have pseudobulbs or other structures connected through rhizomes. I'm not going to talk about monopodials such as vandas and phalaenopsis. That will be for a different video. There are other things to talk about there. However, though, I do see in the comment section that some of you guys really do want to have a video or some advice on how we can keep these orchids tiny, which I know is weird because in the past I told you guys that I like specimen-sized orchids, and I do. I have quite a few of them, and there are orchids which I want to see in big sizes, and I'm willing to sacrifice space for that. But I kind of have about 400 orchids. Will all of them be specimens? Well, at the moment at least, it's not functional for me. Bigger orchids means more space occupied and more maintenance from me. And I'm just one person. I am already a little bit overwhelmed. So there are some orchids which I really don't mind if I keep them in a rather tinier state. And by this I don't mean keeping them short. No, keeping them in their natural size, but not like this. Do we see what's going on with this Cattleyas? So today I will address maintaining sympodial orchids tiny in a safe manner. So don't forget to give this video a like if you end up enjoying it, and why not subscribe? I post 3 times a week currently. So with that said, let me show you what the problem with leaving orchids just ramble on can be in a home environment. Okay, right off the bat, you might notice my nails look horrifying. Yes, I had black gel on them for my birthday, and today I removed it, and oh boy, I did not expect this to happen. So I will try not to give you close-ups, but yeah, that's what's happening to my nails today. So you might know that we do have some techniques of actually shaping a little bit our orchids. We can put ring supports on them, we can stake their canes and pseudobulbs. We can even rotate them a little bit so that we make new growths grow towards the light. And for some orchids, things will go very smooth, but with others, it will not, because orchids do have a little bit of a mind of their own, and they will not necessarily react how you'd like them to react. And even if I would pot it in a bigger pot, maybe a wider pot, I would still have a little bit of a mess on my hands because the back portion, the older portion of this orchid, is not growing anything. And it's actually pretty old at this point. It's 4 or 5 years old. This is an orchid that does not grow very fast. It produces 1 or 2 growths per year. So the chances of naturally obtaining growths from this side are very, very slim, unless I artificially try to encourage growths by cutting the rhizome, which in this case, I don't know if it's gonna work so well because this is very old growth. So unless I do that, there will be nothing growing from this side of the orchid. You can see the pseudobulbs are kind of shriveled, even though the orchid is not dehydrated and it has a ton of roots. It's just old age at this point. So rather than removing this entire orchid and potting it in a bigger pot, I would much rather give it a haircut. Being that division is very successful with sympodial orchids, you can absolutely perform it and just not keep that division, which is what I will do now because the division is very, very old. Speaking about division, links down below to a more extended discussion on that. There are other things that I will not mention today, just so I spare you the blabbing. So this is a first case scenario which we will handle today. Now in this case, things are a little bit different. This is a Cattleya that I just purchased. I didn't get to repot just yet, but I will very soon because this growth is creating roots. So in this case, can we see that we have new growth, or actually active growth, on both sides of the orchid? So if I were to just remove this section of the orchid, I would completely lose out on this section, which is still growing. Now we can definitely do that and create 2 separate plants. We can give away one of the divisions, pretty much it will just be a division, and you can keep one of the divisions. Or what I do believe I will do with this orchid, maybe after it blooms, we'll see, I will just eliminate the middle part. So this side of the orchid, I will keep this side and this side, and just cut away all of these pseudobulbs in between, because the old part of this orchid, and maybe this is easier for you to see, is right here in the middle. It is not here. Even though this is tinier, this is a new direction that decided to grow pretty recently. So with this one, we can reduce its size safely by implementing division rules, which I talk about in that video, which make sure that the orchid will be capable of bouncing back after the division and just eliminating the middle old part. The results pretty much will be still a pretty big orchid, but not as big as this, and definitely much easier to manage. So I will be sure to make a separate video with this orchid. I did this in the past. I don't remember in what video. I will try to find it for you and link it in the description. But yeah, with this one, we can totally save both of the sides, pot them together even, but eliminate the middle, which is very, very old, and chances of it producing new growth are slimmer. Obviously, if you want to give away or keep the middle part, you can definitely do so. You can do whatever you want. But you know, for the purpose of this video, I'm gonna focus on maintaining tiny sizes on orchids. And then we have this type of an orchid, which is a Cattleyas that does not grow very, very slow. It's not like the first Cattleyas we saw. This actually happened pretty fast. And because this has a much faster growth, chances of the older section of the orchid sprouting the new growth are bigger, because these guys are not 5 years old. They're about maybe 3. And as you can see, I do have the front here just growing out of the pot, so I do need to address this. But with this, what I can do is cut the rhizome in the middle and keep both sides, just rearrange them a little bit better in the pot. Right now you can see the rhizome is a straight line. What if I bend that line to make it fit better in the same size of pot? So in this case, you might not want necessarily to discard or throw away a middle section or an old section, but imagine this is the rhizome, is a straight line. Do this, and this is how you will pot it. You will gain half a pot with the very same orchid. And since the old part is still young, it might actually start to sprout a new direction of growth, which means more blooms. Now, again, this is totally your call. I will not do this because this is a very fast growing Cattleyas. As you can see, I do have 2 growths here, 2 directions, so I can start to play with the light situation. We'll see how that goes. So for me, this section, I don't want to keep, I might propagate, but it's another solution to the problem of how do we keep orchids tidier and tinier. In all of these cases, the procedure is relatively safe. I am not removing too many structures from the orchids, as you will see with the orchid we're gonna work on. I will absolutely follow the division rules and make sure that the active parts of the orchids have roots and have backup pseudobulbs. And with that said, I do believe it's time to get to work. So I'll show you how I will manage this big lady. Alright, so I unpotted my orchid and removed quite a lot of the older medium. Not a whole lot, as you can see, because this orchid is actually potted in this medium for about 1.5 years. And it gives me a really good insight on how the medium performed. It's actually not very broken down, so that's good. The main reason for repotting this orchid was the fact that it was actually growing outside of its pot. So now I have a very clear image of how I want to divide this orchid. It is actually a division at the end of the day. Excuse the varying light. It's a little patchy today. Finally, it rained here after, I don't know, 6 or 7 months. Woohoo! So yeah, following the rules of division, I will make sure that I'm keeping the active growth side, which does have roots and it is growing new roots at the moment. And also, I will leave on at least 3 pseudobulbs. Whenever you make divisions, if you only cut 1 or 2, in some cases, pseudobulbs, it might not be enough for the orchid to continue growing with the same speed and vigorousness. Moreover, it can be quite risky for some orchids if you don't make a proper division. In some cases, you will actually need more than 3 pseudobulbs. But in this case, I see my orchid has a very good root system. The pseudobulbs are really plump, really sturdy. So my decision is, do I keep 3 or 4 pseudobulbs? And well, first I'm gonna cut 4 pseudobulbs, and then I'll decide if I want to cut 1 more. So I need to go at the rhizome level right here. I hope you can see right here, and cut right at the back of the rhizome where this old pseudobulb ends. It's always better to cut into, okay, let's wait for that to end because it's pretty loud. All right, so it's always better to cut into the part you want to discard rather than the part you want to keep, because sometimes you can do mistakes, and that's perfectly human. We all do mistakes. So always account for a potential mistake, and rather than ruining a pseudobulb you want to keep, better damage a pseudobulb that you don't want to keep anyway. So I went in with my garden pruners because this rhizome is really thick, and I made a clean cut, and ooh, the rhizome looks really good. A little throwback to a few years ago when most of my collection was affected by Fusarium. I think I still have a few orchids from back then that are affected, but they're pulling through. It's been a while since I saw a clean rhizome, and I'll give you a close-up so you see. Whenever you have a Fusarium affected rhizome, according to some articles, you should see a purple ring around the rhizome. Without going into too much details, Fusarium is an ailment which can determine really weak growth in orchids. And I have a whole painful history with Fusarium that I inflicted on myself. Yeah, but at some point I thought I would lose all of my collection to Fusarium, and that was pretty bad. So seeing clean rhizomes, even though this orchid has been for at least a year and a half in my collection, is good news. It means I don't have a problem in my collection, or at least not anymore. So I'm so happy to see that. So here we have my division, and you know what? I think I'm going to keep this pseudobulb as well. If I remove it, I'll just have these 3 pseudobulbs, but the bulbs are not very plump. I can definitely stake it and make it quite tidy. It looks good. I'm going to keep this. The more pseudobulbs I can keep, the better actually. So I'm just gonna go ahead and remove a little bit more of this medium and another piece. I'm so happy to see that this bark that I find locally is so easy to remove. Whenever you have big chunks of bark, they actually are so hard to remove from the roots because obviously the roots attach to that piece of bark. But with tinier pieces, it's so easy to remove them and barely any damage at all on the roots, which with Cattleyas is a big thing. So yeah, I like it when things are going smoothly. Alright, so I will pot this orchid in my new self-watering pots that I'm just testing out to see how they work. You might see they look a little bit different. I have an entire video on customizing self-watering pots depending on the various needs you guys have, so stay tuned for that. I'm really excited about it. There are so many things you can do with these pots actually. Yeah, anyway, no spoilers, you're gonna see, but this week is part of that video. Anyway, just a little disclaimer, it doesn't mean my entire collection is switching to self-watering now. I'm just testing out stuff. I'm a YouTuber. I'm supposed to test out stuff, or at least I like to. So I'm gonna use my typical sphagnum moss and bark mix, just like I would a normal pot, which is not self-watering. And I'll be sure to place the older part of the orchid towards the edge, which I cannot decide if I wanted this vent to be in the front or in the back. Let's put it in the back, I guess, and then continue adding medium. Now, I typically don't seal off the rhizomes. To me, they look very woody, very dry. They're not prone to getting infected all that easy, so I don't put anything on the cut wound. If I would cut a leaf or a pseudobulb, I would definitely at least put some cinnamon there, but in the case of a rhizome, I don't. Also, it's very close to the level of the medium, so cinnamon will just wash away. If you do want to seal it, if you just feel better about it, you can use hot glue or hot wax, and definitely that will seal off the place. I'm not going to do it, but it's not wrong to do it if you want to. I just feel like cinnamon is inefficient simply due to the position of the rhizome right in the medium or at the level where the medium ends. Guess what? I actually found my slow release fertilizer jar and my tray. As I'm almost done with the greenhouse, things start to resurface. So I'm using the Osmocote Pro High K slow release fertilizer, which will help me out in those moments when I will just be too tired, too busy, just not bothered with preparing fertilized water, which, you know what? It happens sometimes. As much as I devote a lot of time to my orchids, there are moments in life where I simply cannot. And that's normal, and I'm sure many of you can relate. That's why slow release fertilizer makes sure that my orchid will not starve. This It's not necessarily a super heavy feeder, but it's not a light feeder either. So the Osmocote fertilizer is my safety net, if you will. Somebody asked me if I still use the MSU. Yes, I still use in conjunction with the slow release fertilizer. It is okay. I don't over fertilize. I did not have issues so far. So yes, I still use the MSU, but sometimes it's just a little bit of a drag to prepare the water. And there we go. All I need to do is insert some stakes and we're done. Okay, I think we're good. Time to water it and we're done. Additionally, what I could have done is get myself a jute twine or something and just tie up all of these growth. I don't want to do that at this point because there's no need. I will probably do it in the future as the plant expands a little bit more. This is how I usually go about keeping orchids at a manageable size. Cutting away the older growth. If you want to propagate it, that's great. If you don't, that's okay too. Apply the division rules. It absolutely works even if you don't have multiple directions of growth. If you do have multiple directions of growth, just make sure that the directions which are active have at least 3 pseudobulbs, and the middle part, which is inactive and you want to discard, you can absolutely discard, and you can actually pot together multiple divisions. This is a practice that I'm actually doing for a while now, and it works great. With monopodials, of course, this doesn't apply because they don't have rhizomes, but I hope this video gave you some ideas or solutions if you are struggling with very, very huge orchids. You can absolutely go the reverse and try to create specimens, and I do have a video on that as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. I wish you have a great day. Subscribe to my channel for more orchid videos, tutorials, experiments, updates, and other fun orchid subjects. If you wish to support the channel, do consider becoming a member or visit the merch store linked down below in the description. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It's always nice to stay in touch there as well. And I'll see you next time. Bye!